We are moving along right into week 3, and we are continuing our movement into the Middle Ages, is what I like to call the High Middle Ages, with our study of probably the most influential work to come out of the period with the most influential author, the Canterbury Tales, and Geoffrey Chaucer, who is considered to be the father of modern English and the father of modern English poetry. I know, weird, right? You guys think of like the most influential person of from the English literary canon, you think of Shakespeare, right? Well, if it weren't for someone like Geoffrey Chaucer, there would be no Will Shakespeare. So, this week we will continue our discussion on the results of the Norman invasion and how that changes England socially, politically, culturally, economically, religiously, and mainly with our discussion of feudalism and the feudalistic system and the breakdown of that by the time we get to Geoffrey Chaucer. I have a couple of lecture videos with the historical context, a video on the language evolution of where we get Middle English and Modern English and that, and as well as a lecture on the general prologue. They're not interactive, but I encourage you guys to pay attention to them because that's information you'll see again on your Unit 1 test. So the Canterbury Tales is a really, really long work, and I'm only asking that you read 2 sections because we're only going to focus on 2 sections. And the first part that we will be focusing on is the general prologue, and that's incredibly important because it outlines the premise of the entire tale. It gives us an overview of our cast of characters and gives us the frame of the frame narrative. So while I'm asking you guys to look at the general prologue, I only really want you to read the first 42 lines. You're more than welcome to read it in its entirety if you have the time, but I really want you to focus on the first 42 lines and pay attention to the lecture on the general prologue, because I will discuss the general prologue and give you guys a summary and description of the various pilgrims that are on our pilgrimage, because it's really important for you guys to understand who's who, and all of that is important because the Nun's Priest Tale makes reference to, directly and indirectly, a number of the pilgrims that are in his company. So if you don't know who's who and you don't understand their kind of background and Chaucer's description of them, it's going to be more difficult to understand the more complex parts of the Nun's Priest's Tale. So, like I said, only the first 42 lines, and then pay attention to the summary and synopsis that I give you in the general prologue lecture. The reason I'm only asking you guys to read the first 42 lines is because I really want us to focus on the Nun's Priest's Tale, the story of Chanticleer and the Fox. And as usual, there is an interactive lecture that I'm having you guys do. And like last week, in the discussion boards, you'll see that I've broken you up into groups, and you'll have a list of questions that you can choose to answer, and only, once one person has answered the question, that question is no longer available. So get in there early, right? There is something a little bit different this week, and it's mainly it's a quiz. It's called the Chaucer Reading Quiz, and that's mainly to check that you've watched the non-interactive lectures. It's worth 25 points. I think there's maybe 10 questions. So it should be, if you've watched the videos, it should be a very easy quiz for you to take. So I urge you all to please don't use anything other than your brain and what you've gathered from the lecture. So it's plagiarism checked. So finally, I have also scheduled us to meet again, optionally, of course, via Zoom on Wednesday at 7 p.m. I won't have a rain check this week. We'll meet at 7 this Wednesday. And should you choose to come, please make sure that you have read The Nun's Priest's Tale and are familiar with it. Bring any questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer them. But if you can't make it, I'll post a link to the recording. And if you have any questions and you can't make it and you want me to address something or want me to discuss something, you can always feel free to pop it in the discussion board titled Questions About Reading, and I'll make sure that I cover it when we have our live interactive discussion. Finally, while I encourage you all to give the Middle English reading a chance in your Norton Anthology of English Literature, I know firsthand how difficult reading Middle English is. I took a whole class on Chaucer when I was in undergraduate, and we had to read it from the Middle English. So I know it's difficult and challenging. It's not easy. So, because of that, I have also provided you with modern translations of both the General Prologue and the Nun's Priest's Tale in the instructions here, down here where it says readings. I've given you a PDF file. So take a look at that. I encourage you, like I said, to look at the Middle English version because it's so I find it interesting because I'm a nerd. But if you're having trouble comprehending that, I have provided you the modern translations. That being said, please let me know if you have any questions, and I'm excited to see what you guys come up with this week in the discussion boards, what we talk about in the discussion, the live discussion, and what you guys think of Chaucer and the Nun's Priest's Tale.